So we tend to talk a lot about AI on this podcast, but honestly, none of the three of us are experts. But do you know two people who are experts? Two people who could probably bore you to death with all of their AI chat? Stefan and Joshua from our sponsors, PropTex. They are absolutely at the forefront of using AI to enhance real estate portal listings, and they're doing some other really cool stuff involving, in listing furniture shopping. We're going to have Stefan on the podcast soon to talk about that. It's genuinely really interesting. If you're interested in learning a bit more about what PropTex does, head to PropTex, that's with 2x's.com, or, hit the guys up on LinkedIn. Obviously, say that we sent you. Hello and welcome to the PPW pod, bringing you news, views, and interviews from the world of real estate marketplaces and PropTech. Joined for today's news episode by Harvey Hancock. How are you?
I've been horizontal for a week and a half, Ed, but that's by the by, because when the news cycle heats up, you got to take a coffee and get back on the microphone.
Oh, you've been ill. Sorry, I thought you might have been. Anyway, move on.
No, I can assure you it wasn't that.
We'll move on. Simon, how are you doing?
Much better than Harvey.
All right. As I said, today's episode is a news roundup. We've got quite a few interesting topics to talk about. We will start with $525 million. Who is giving that amount to who, Harvey?
Yeah, so $525 million investment has been made by Permira and Blackstone, the Adevinta guys, into Property Finder out of Dubai. They have taken a small slice of General Atlantic's holding in Property Finder, and they think that Dubai and Middle East in general, UAE, the Gulf, is a good place for their money to be at the moment. That's the absolute basics. It's interesting that this investment comes just a couple of weeks after Michael Ayani says, we do not want to go public. We want to have all our private investment exhausted before we go public. Yeah, good news. Well done, Michael. Well done on the continued good work, and let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the valuation was for this. I don't know if it was released, but
$2 billion. We're now a double unicorn.
Wow. Okay. So who needs an IPO, right, Simon? What's the point in having all the stresses of an IPO if you can get some nice big private equity firm to come and give you? I say give you, it's not a give.
You have earned it.
To come and lend you or invest in you to the tune of 525 million.
Yeah, so let's sort of break this down. First of all, it's a bit of PE selling to PE. Okay, and that's sort of, if you're General Atlantic, you've been in there for at least a decade, so you want to liquidate some of that. So selling to another PE, which we've seen happen many times before. I mean, Idealista is the poster child for that. So I think there's a bit of that happening. It's a bit of locking in a market price as well. They've bought was it 525 million worth at and Harvey, according to you, to 2 billion. It's all secondary. I've had that confirmed to me. So there's no primary, nothing going into the business, because the business is doing very well. It's profitable, and shareholders don't want to be diluted. So it was just that's what I was my source was telling me. So overall, good. It's locked into price. I think Michael Lanyani has done a fantastic job, and at this point in time, why do they need to? They're probably paying some dividends out of the profitability they're doing. So I think overall, well done. Well done to Michael. He's done a fantastic job. And I think the people who are probably kicking themselves most are the REA group, who, sorry, have to mention this again, who sold the business. They used to own 51% of this business. They didn't think it was worth anything. It was sold back to Michael for a few $100,000 back in 2009, maybe 2010. And here we are 15 years later, and that would have been $1 billion stake.
Yeah.
Bluntly.
Yeah. The sort of interesting thing for me around this is Dubai or the Emirates in general currently in a property bubble? Because they've had bubbles before. Property prices have been absolutely soaring. I can't remember off the top of my head what the percentage was, but I did see that it was a very big percentage in a very short space of time. Um, I imagine the big question that if you are, a private equity firm looking to invest there would be, are we in a bubble? Now, I think there have been two property bubbles in Dubai in the last 20, 15, 20 years. Like how much convince if you're Michael Ayani and you're in charge of Property Finder, you want this investment, how much kind of convincing do you need to do, or how much of the convincing goes on at the private equity firm kind of behind the scenes for this? Like, is it something that you do have to convince them of, or will they have done enough homework that that's not even a conversation?
Well, yes and yes. I mean, clearly they're doing their homework, and Property Finder's not just in Dubai. Remember, they've got sites in Turkey and Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt.
Bahrain, Egypt, yeah.
They've got many other sites, but clearly the majority of their business is the UAE. Now, so first of all, the private equity firms have got tons of analysts doing tons of work on analyzing, understanding businesses. So they will be comfortable that A, the business is solid and robust, and B, that the upside potential of the group as a whole not only justifies a current valuation of around this 2 billion mark, upside potential, because they want to make a multiple on their money. Okay, out of all of this. All in all, they would have done the research, and of course, anyone who's in a management position is also doing forecasts and basically projecting forward where they believe the business can go as well. So it'll be both sides of the coin working on this to get to the outcome where Permira and Blackstone, right? Permira and Blackstone feel very comfortable in investing in the business at what is a nice healthy valuation. So well done. Honestly, great news, and I've always been a big fan of what Michael was doing in that market. Given I originally negotiated for News to buy that 51%, and I always thought that if you executed well and you'd do a good job. I think the other group who's very happy about all this will be EMPG or Dubizzle Group, right? Because this is a external validation of their business, because they're fine. A lot of it's Dubai focused, and one would think that if they are thinking of either capital raise, secondary like this with private equity, or even a listing, then this is a good. Hey guys, they're worth 2 billion. We're going to be worth X. This is great.
Yep,
So I
absolutely.
think I'll be happy too.
Ed, before we move on, just a couple of numbers to add some context here. So you said you don't remember the numbers. Square footage in Dubai for real estate has virtually tripled in the past 20 years, from $163 per square foot in 2003 to $490 in 2025. And also real estate prices have increased 20% per annum in the last few years. Is it a bubble? It's an interesting question because that's very high acceleration. But Michael did say in his comments that this is expected to slow considerably in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, congratulations to Property Finder. We'll move on to quite a big. This is a bit of a bomb. I say a bombshell. This is quite unexpected. This next news story from Australia, right, Harvey?
Yeah. So Cameron McIntyre is the new CEO at REA Group, but one person who isn't CEO is Melina Cruikshank, and she was a high-ranking executive at REA Group, and it seems that she has been snubbed for CEO and has consequently left the building. She's resigned her position officially to spend time with friends and family, but unofficially, perhaps she's unhappy that she's been overlooked for CEO. So we have a big gaping hole in the C-suite at REA Group that we thought it was just going to be CEO, but now I think it's Chief Marketing and Audience Officer. I think her role was. So I had a question here for Simon, which was, Simon, did you ever have a really unexpected high level resignation or unexpected departure, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, me. So yes, no, the answer is yes. When you're building these businesses, there's always something happens that is unexpected. Either they're given a massive check from someone else to jump ship, or B, they're not getting what they want or feel like they deserve, and they decide to go and do something else. And that's just part and parcel of growing a business. And the most important thing is that conversations are open, transparent, and everyone knows where they stand. And if everyone plays that way within a business, then you usually get to the right outcome. What tends to happen is that businesses struggle with being open and transparent and with their employees. So they'll talk to one, not the other. And I think was reading something about the announcement, and people were at the meeting. Where do we read? Somewhere, maybe.
So I want to give
I
credit
think it
to
was
the
the AFR.
The Australian Financial Review have done very good reporting on this. They clearly have a good source, and they've been leading the way on this. They did good work.
Yeah. So I think my reading of the tea leaves is that they didn't manage the process as well as they could, and in that process, an internal candidate wasn't probably communicated as well as they probably could have been to. That's my guess in this whole process, and they've just gone, you know, what am I here for? Have I reached my limit? And if so, I might as well go somewhere else and go do something interesting, right? Or different, or push the boundaries somewhere else. Or, I don't know, there might be a new owner to a competitor who is wanting to make a difference and probably has a fair chunk of change to throw at the problem.
Yeah,
And
who Melina Cruikshank did used to work for, remember?
and it's based in Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Who actually wanted to stay.
to talk a little bit about the AFR's reporting on this, I believe they reported two, we'll just call them separate pieces of gossip. The first of which was that Melina Cruikshank wasn't considered because she lives in Sydney and didn't want to move to Melbourne. The
Correct.
second thing that was kind of gossip, and we have absolutely no proof of any of this, is that there was kind of a dispute between News Corp and the internal people at REA about, we want this candidate, no, well, we want this other candidate. It seems, and the whole process did take quite a while. It does seem like it was quite a difficult process to find a new person for this. And then reading the other day that what's his name, McIntyre, is it McIntyre, the guy that they ended up hiring, was
Cameron McIntyre.
Cameron McIntyre was good mates all along with the current CEO, Owen Wilson. You're kind of thinking, well, why didn't you just hire him from the start then? It seems like it could have gone smoother, let's say.
Yeah, politics tends to put its nose in where it's sometimes not wanted. The other thing is, and I do understand, if you are based in, very few businesses can run incredibly well with the CEO located, 1.5 hours plane flight away from the majority of the staff. It sort of doesn't make sense. It makes sense to have a CEO on site leading the way, especially as the competitive market will change. I mean, CoStar's not coming in to just be the same. They're coming in to make a change. Interesting. I just saw on social media today that pictures of cruising down the harbour in Sydney Harbour, and about 100,000 people from CoStar US had landed in Sydney.
The Florence handing out the barbecue was quite a good look, wasn't it?
Yeah. So clearly they're going to put a lot of time and effort into having a great growth of the business. And I think of Domain, and that's going to create very strong competitive forces for REA. And given that, you want to have someone who is close to what is happening. So I can understand that. The rest, I just don't know. I'm not close to it.
Okay, we'll move on. Speaking a bit about News Corp, I covered a story today which I thought was very interesting. News Corp and its CEO, Robert Thomson, have apparently been in pretty high-level discussions with OpenAI and its CEO, Sam Altman, about building a product for Realtor.com. Now, this is all, this is based on a transcript of a discussion that Robert Thomson was having at a Goldman Sachs conference. So it's, as you can imagine, kind of like high level, not really saying very much. They're not saying anything about what this product may or may be, but It struck me as really interesting for one particular reason, which I'm sure Simon will enjoy getting into, which is I think up until now, certainly at Property Portal Watch conferences, we've had this kind of narrative of things like ChatGPT being real sources of competition and you know things to fear a little bit for real estate portals. What I'm seeing here, or what I'm imagining I'm seeing, is a potential opportunity, a potential partnership between a real estate portal owning company and one of these, AI platforms that we've thought could challenge portals. What are your thoughts here? It kind of, to me, it makes sense for both parties here. I think it doesn't make sense for an OpenAI to build something that challenges a real estate portal. It makes sense for them to partner, right?
It's all about data, right? So if we assume that OpenAI's product ChatGPT, that seems half the world is using a lot, it's all about conversations, understanding, and then giving you the answers that best suit whatever it is you're trying to work out, whether it's cooking meat or wanting to find a house or try and do analysis of a business. I mean, what's interesting today is I had a coffee earlier with a friend of mine here who is heavy into the investment community, and they're saying if you're an analyst, you don't have a job anymore because analytic reports about companies are all being done by AI now. Yeah, they're training up AI engines to analyze a company to provide then buy, sell, hold recommendations. And the jobs and the output is done in minutes, and it's of a higher quality, higher quality, more in depth, more actionable than what historically was taking a human 2 weeks to do. So therefore, with all this greater and greater usage of things like AI, ChatGPT, versions of that, it's only inevitable that a solution is provided for the real estate industry, searching for homes, searching for cars, jobs, whatever. There'll be just better engines developed for doing that, which means then it's all about the data, because what you want to do is whatever I ask, however I ask, you need to have data to give me the right result. Ed, if you're asking for I'm interested in a house in XYZ between these prices, A, it should be returning exactly what you're looking for, no matter where it comes from. And B, you're going to start to get AI engines going, wait a second, Ed, you can't afford that. I'm going to give you something else, right? It's even going to make that sort of judgment for you, whether you like it or not. So I think the upside, if I was realtor.com, so if I'm ChatGPT, I want to know about this. I want to do this because I want to understand what is a large search segment, a big use case, not only in the US but globally. If I'm realtor.com, I'd be careful what I wish for, because if you train this, why does it have to look at realtor.com in the future? Why can't it just go and find the best source of the data, which might be the MLS? Okay, so it's all about putting me in touch with the right property and the right agent to execute it. Well, why do I need the portal again? Okay, I don't. I fundamentally don't. A portal is a middle person, so all middle people are sort of exposed here in this
Okay.
process. So I think it's a little bit dangerous for news to be going too deep into this. Okay, so the question is, maybe it's the better the devil you know.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me as really interesting about this on this podcast, we have, I think, more than once been not critical, but we've highlighted, let's say, the downsides of being owned by a big media conglomerate like News Corp. I think this is one of the potential benefits. So I was reading the transcript of this conversation, and it's kind of incredible. And the CEO of News, Robert Thompson, is talking about, yeah, we've been chatting to Google about their search results and how they get them. Oh, and we've been chatting to OpenAI about this and that. You're thinking, wow, you can just pick up the phone and talk to these people and have these conversations is kind of amazing. And where this has all come from, this report about, realtor.com might be working with OpenAI to build a real estate product. This all came from an agreement last year between News Corp and OpenAI, which basically lets OpenAI use a bunch of News Corp's media to train its model, right? So this is we have been maybe not critical, but we've highlighted the negatives of being owned by someone like News Corp, but there are clearly some positives as well. It gets you these conversations with these powerful companies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great, because if I'm I don't know, a small little company based in Europe somewhere with a couple of million of revenue, and I knock on the door of OpenAI, they're going to go, who? What?
They're going to ignore you.
Yeah, they're going to ignore you. So yeah, they have a chance to influence the outcome. But remember, these OpenAIs of the world, well, they just want to have uh, amazing access to data. They want to train and train and train, work out what works, what doesn't work, what are good results, bad results, and so on. So I can understand their upside, and they've got to pay for it. I think there was a lawsuit recently that was settled for billions, or one of the Perplexity or someone had been using data from another company. It wasn't in the real estate industry. I read it in passing yesterday. So paying for access to the data, then maybe the quid pro quo here is, well, I want to have access to you to get customized stuff done for me, or stuff that I get first access to, or something. So I think it's worth looking at, but I've got a feeling that there are bigger use cases beyond real estate that they'll be targeting first. The more I think about it, I think AI will um, become a very important tool in real estate, whether it's in helping agents do their jobs better, making the listings more comprehensive and more understanding and more interactive. But the search side, I think, is, although we're seeing a progressive uptick in the use of ChatGPT and those sort of products for searching, still relatively insignificant. And as we chatted the other day with Joseph from Ingatlan, and he was talking about, most people just go to the site, they type in a suburb, and they start searching. They're not interested in all the bells and whistles that you can offer them. And I think there's still a bit of a generational change that will occur in how people search, and purely for the reason that buying a property is a big decision. It's a 3-month plus process, and there is the fear of missing out. What happens if I didn't look at a portal? Oh, I didn't. I've got to look at both portals just in case there's a property on one and not on the other that I find that might be the perfect match, because I'm going to live in the outcome. It's not like I'm buying an iPhone or something, right? Where if I lose this, it's a pain in the ass. It's $1,000 wasted, but I can replace it pretty quickly. Download my backup copy, and I'm functioning the same way in the afternoon. It's a very different purchase decision. Whereas these sort of things, I think you'll be progressively using the chat GPTs of the world going, oh, I see the new iPhone 17's been released, which it has been, I see. Okay, when can I get one? Pre-order me one. Just do all the work for me. I don't want to go to a website. I don't want to do anything. Just make it happen.
Yeah, I tend to think that this won't be the last we hear about this. I also think there will be other big real estate portal companies looking to make similar partnerships. But that's all we have for now. It's kind of as was said in the transcript of this, it's really early stage discussions. And we'll bring you more on it as and when we get it. We'll move on to a story which I read in passing today and handed it off to Harvey, who I think was writing it up as we were coming live on this. Hemnet has a bit of a dilemma in Sweden. Am I right?
Yes, indeed, you are right. So we're still in draft, but the crux of the matter is Hemnet is under pressure from two different directions to both increase and decrease its prices. So a bit of context here. Cecilia Beck-Friis, past CEO of Hemnet, leaves in around January, February this year. Jonas Gustafsson comes in, and ever since, Hemnet stock has gone down, down, down. It's had a 40% decrease in the last 6 months, more or less. And now one of its big investors, it's an Australia-based company called GCQ has basically said, guys, Hemnet is looking vulnerable right now. You need to improve stock performance. They've penned a letter to CEO and basically said, what are you going to do about it? Now, GCQ says, Hemnet, you need to increase your prices. You're charging roughly 0.2% of the average selling price for vendors selling their properties in Sweden. If you look at Australia, REA Group is charging 0.4%. So you could essentially double your prices, and that's going to obviously bring up the stock. Obviously, that doesn't take into account the fact that REA Group is under investigation by the ACCC for its astonishing price hikes. So what more do we have? We're being told to do more interviews, Hemnet. Be more public with your communication strategy. Tell investors about what you're up to, what you're doing, how you're going to be increasing performance in the company in the coming weeks, months, and years. It's all a bit of a mess, to be honest, because we also have Hemnet not necessarily under official investigation, but certainly being called out by the industry for its own aggressive price hikes. So now we have a bit of a tug of war going on where the industry is telling Hemnet, you need to be nicer to the consumer, please lower your prices. And then we also have what we would call a slightly distressed asset at the moment that's seen continued share price falls over the last 6 months. And the investors are saying, you need to increase the prices to get it back to a normal valuation. It's this one's a bit of a messy one, Simon.
Yes and no. I think we need to look at it through a few lenses.
Go on then.
First of all, it's the GCQ. I think you said it was
GCQ 5.2% stake in Hemnet.
Okay, and the
One of
question
the top
is,
10 shareholders.
I wonder when they bought it. My guess is they may have bought it towards the
They
peak.
bought it in 2022.
2022.
So they're in their third year of holding now.
Okay, so well, if it's 2022, then they were buying it at 130, 140, whatever the currency is. This is in crowns, I guess it is, and it's now currently at 280. So they probably doubled their money, but it was at 420.
It was at 420 in February, which was a peak. So it's the highest it's ever been in February.
Yeah. So let's think about this, right? First of all, clearly, if you go back and look at the share price since 24, since they moved to the vendor paid advertising model, the businesses, the market cap sort of doubled right up until earlier this year, driven by results and also driven by enthusiasm from the market. Remember, the market's movement of a share price is tied to the performance, but not always tied to the performance. It's tied to their overly enthusiastic views of the world or their pessimism about a company. And I've experienced both, being in listed companies. So let's say the market's got super enthusiastic. They've probably said, oh, you're going to increase 40%. You're going to do a whole bunch of stuff because we've looked at other markets. You're going to be just like Australia, not understanding vendor paid advertising is different in Australia, where it's been around for 60 years, to versus Sweden, where they're introducing it and they're pushing it as a change of mindset.
Sorry to interrupt, but I wrote an article specifically on this a while ago, literally comparing Hemnet to REA Group. And there's one very big difference that I don't know if it's been accounted for here. REA Group doesn't, so in Sweden, the agents are incentivized to upsell vendor paid advertising because some of the money comes back to them. So Hemnet actually pays some of the money back to the agents. Whereas in Australia, I remember you told me straight up, they're not allowed to do that. So it's not an apples to apples comparison here at all.
Absolutely.
So I think you've got market enthusiasm. It's coming off the boil. The person who was leading the business has left. They got a new CEO and so on. That's sort of one part of the story. Over enthusiasm. Second part of the story is probably around marketing of the company. So marketing of the shares. We always have to remember shares are like selling product. You have to market it. Buy my shares, buy my product. Why? This is what the product is. This is the potential return. This is the upside potential. This is why it's a great product. Please buy more. Okay, that's what you have to do. And they probably haven't done a good job at that. Okay, so therefore that's probably part of the reason. Okay, I think the third is you when you put your prices up aggressively and you go from being a non-vendor paid advertising to a vendor paid advertising model, and the prices are going up, you're going to get pushback from an industry. They're not used to it. In Australia, they were more used to it, right? Because they go, well, I'm not paying this. I'm just putting it in my marketing plan and I'm telling the homeowner to pay it. And because you have lots of auctions in Australia where it's for 4 weeks only, you're paying to get to a deadline where we're having the auction and so on. It's an easier conversation to have versus in other markets where there aren't auctions and it's a straight sale. You don't know if you're selling in a week, a month, 3 months, okay, and so on. It's a much so how long am I going to keep paying this premium for? Okay, I need to know. I don't know. So you keep paying a premium of this vendor paid advertising. So I think there's a lot of stuff that the industry sort of doesn't like. And if you're a real estate agent, you don't want to, and the market's slow. And I think we chatted beforehand that the market in Sweden is slow. So the market's slow. Things are taking longer to sell. Let's say you're asking the homeowner to spend, I don't know, 100, 200, 500 per month. Well, it's now 3 months. It's now 4 months. You're asking me to pay more again to market my house and I'm not getting anyone through to look at it. Why am I paying that again? And then the agent, of course, wanting to keep the customer happy or the home seller happy, says, I'll pay that. Or I'll pay half of it. Okay. Or we don't buy it, or maybe they don't do it. So that then puts pressure on the whole model. And of course, if I'm an agent, I'm going, well, I'm going to complain to the person who's trying to charge me the money, the portal, Hemnet, and so on. So I think that's the other counterforce that's happening. So you've got a shareholder who's coming out of an Australian environment saying, well, it happens here, you can do it there. And I don't know how much time they've spent at the other end, and not understanding the subtleties of the market, putting pressure on. And remember, shareholders are not there for the best interests of the company. They never are. They're to take their 5% investment from whatever they spent to 5 times their money, which means it's got to go from, if they invested at 130, it's got to go to 600. Okay?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm sure 5% of Hemnet or whatever, I can't remember what the percentage is. I'm sure it's not cheap, but to be an activist investor writing letters in the public domain, basically criticizing the CEO and all this, and having people like us talk about it and drag Hemnet through the mud a little bit for 5% of the company seems, I don't know,
Short-sighted.
it seems like they should have 20% to be able to drag Hemnet through the mud,
Any shareholder, that's the beauty of being a listed company. Then I'm being sarcastic. All your shareholders have equal rights. You own a share, you have one share, you have the right to bring up any issue.
Okay, maybe I'll write a bunch of letters for all the companies that I own shares in, and we can talk about it on the next episode.
Absolutely, but I've been involved in companies where someone's held literally, 5 shares, equivalent to very little of the company, like microscopic. And they write, as a shareholder, I'm disappointed in how management's doing this. Why aren't you doing that? And you have 2 choices. You can ignore them, or you can respond to them. Now, if someone's got 5 shares out of, let's say, 10 million, you tend to ignore them. Someone's got 5% of the business, they have the capacity to be disruptive. Okay? When you have your shareholder vote, they get to speak. They'll probably get to speak at the shareholder meeting, ask questions of the chairman or the management team.
But Simon, by being disruptive, they potentially run the risk of devaluing the thing that they're holding an investment in.
Or they put pressure, or they just want to change your management, who's going to be more, if their fundamental view is, you can double the price, and the management's saying, I'm not doubling the price. Well, get rid of the management, put someone in there who's going to double the price. And the other thing we've got to remember, everyone's got memories like fish, 5-second memories. Okay, everyone's got a 5-second memory. Okay, with everything nowadays. So it's a hiccup along the way. So all they're doing is putting pressure on, so they can get what they want, which is a share price. Now remember, they might be thinking, well, if I can get them to double their share price, so double the price of the product, capture more, That gets released to the market. The whole stock market gets super giddy about it. The price goes up to 600, whatever it is, crowns. I'll sell. I'm out. Good luck. But the company has to live with the ramifications of what happens with the customer base.
Absolutely.
That's
I
why
think
there's two games at play here.
that's obviously one side of it. The other side, and again, I reiterate, I read this in passing and handed it off to Harvey. But one thing that struck me as interesting, and it's a point that you raised a while ago when we spoke about CoStar buying homes.com, is your shares are a product too. And one of the complaints in this letter was perhaps Hemnet hasn't done a very good job of selling its shares as a product to domestic, people who
Investors.
retail shareholders, right? Now, you made a very good point, and I remember I think I actually put a LinkedIn post out there saying, people who use a MacBook buy Apple shares, people who eat at McDonald's buy McDonald's shares, people who search for a home on homes.com, do they buy CoStar shares? It's an interesting point that you have to consider when you're in charge of one of these companies is you're actually selling something the whole time as well. You're selling what you do as a product to retail investors. Why would retail investors not invest in Hemnet? It seems like if I was a retail investor in Sweden, that's one of the big brands. It had a big flotation. We know it's doing well. Like they must have done quite a poor job of selling that, right?
Actually, there's multiple channels to market. There's sort of direct channels to market to funds, major shareholders. There's indirect channels through advisors, people who are working at banks, working in investment companies who are advising their clients to invest in a stock or not, or brokers. I did a lot of presentations when we were at listed companies to brokers to get them to recommend to their high net worth individual clients. And then there's the absolute retail who are the mums and dads buying. Now, I don't know enough about the Swedish market to know how people buy shares and what they're really interested in and how conservative they are. Because a lot of it comes down to conservatism. What is the dividend yield, for example? I mean, here the dividend yield is 0.64%. Okay. And I might go, well, that's not a very good dividend yield and not one that I'm excited about. So then I'm looking for capital growth. Well, am I going to get the capital growth from the stock? I don't know. Okay. So versus they might be investing in, I don't know, bank shares or something else. And I've got no idea. I'm making it up. That's giving me a 4% dividend yield. Well, okay, that's better. And capital growth in the process. So there's and so the other thing you've always got to remember is, and I have no idea on this one, unfortunately, but however many companies are listed on the Stockholm Exchange, the answer is it's probably in the hundreds, if not thousands, and you've got to get cut through. You've got to get them to want to look at you. Great, you're a 24 billion Swedish crown business, which I have no idea what that is in US dollars, but you are a materially sized company, but you're probably not in the top 100, is my guess. So how do you get people to pay attention to you? And that's hard. So yeah, you have to get on to the TV shows, the newspapers, you have to do your own marketing, it's a process. And it's in good companies, the CEOs are out there, they're doing 3 or 4 interviews with someone every week just to get cut through. They've got a great website that communicates the messages. They're using their channel, which is people who are registered. If you've registered for search results, etc., why can't you market to them, or at least make them aware of what you're doing? There's always, and of course, then there's all the laws around marketing of shares to people and being a financial advisor and so on. You have to comply to. So easily said, sometimes a little hard done. But if you're running these businesses, you have to have a very clear, systematic approach. And my question would be: do they have a head of in investor relations?
Okay. We will move on. It would not be a PPW pod episode, news episode, without mentioning the Z word. Harvey, mention the Z word for us, please.
The Z word is Zillow, and Zillow is started removing the alleged copyright infringing images that CoStar has brought against it in a major lawsuit in July. So this is a potentially $1 billion in damages lawsuit, says CoStar. Zillow has started removing some of the images that appear on its portal, as well as the likes of Redfin and Realtor.com. There's nothing overly controversial about this. A Zillow source said that this is standard procedure
Yeah, I wanted to
during one
bring that
of
up.
these.
I find that funny, the word standard procedure. This is standard procedure.
Also known as
Whenever
covering your
somebody
tracks.
flags that there are 47,000 potentially copyrighted images, we will wait several months and then take them down. That's the standard procedure for this specific scenario.
What can you do?
Yeah, there's not much to say on this one, but it's I just wanted to highlight it because of those two
there
words,
isn't.
standard procedure, which
Hilarious, love it.
hey,
Yes.
gentlemen, thank you very
Now,
much for your time. We'll leave it there. Oh, go on,
Well, I've got
go on,
one
Simon.
more.
I know what you're going
I
to say,
have
and I'll
one
let
more.
you say it.
The company, you guys remember better than I will, Zephyr
Zephyr.
raised. Yep, it's a company
Sorry,
called
yeah.
Zephyr that raised 15 million euros last week to build an AI search. Okay, and I thought that's an interesting topic in itself. So and it's a French-based company, I believe. Okay, and I'm going, well, what are you really building? So I went and checked out the site, and it seems to be just a text-based search engine for real estate. And the question that went through my mind is, are they building what inevitably ChatGPT or Perplexity or Manus are going to do anyway? It's going to be it's functionality that's going to be built into what already exists. And if so, what is it that the investors saw in this business and its underlying business model, which I don't understand, okay, that made them want to invest 15 million at what is clearly a much higher valuation?
Yeah, I tried to work out the business model as well. It took me a little while. It's one of these companies that doesn't have a business model. It's not a portal. It doesn't have a portal's business model. So you kind of have to dig deeper into what the business model is. I could give you a short answer, but my
Please do.
brain would have to work very hard. Let's put it that way. We're hoping to have the founder on the podcast in the near future because
We are indeed.
this is a topic that we like to talk about. Let's say.
Yeah. So I think it'll be very interesting for us to try to get to the bottom of it. Now, this Zephyr is a Zephyr,
Yes.
which is different to Zephyr, Zephyr.ai.
Yes.
Okay, which is another one who's doing this. So I think, watch this space. We want to dig deeper. Hopefully got the CEO coming on to have a chat about it. And I'm hopefully trying to get the CEO to come and talk at the Property Portal Watch conference, which is coming up in October. Literally, we've got close on to 300 now registered for the conference. It is definitely going to be our largest conference ever. We're back to pre-COVID levels, which has taken a few years, but we're there. And the topic's a lot around AI. So if you're interested in learning more about everything we've talked about today and a lot more, come to Madrid from the 15th to the 17th of October. We've got fantastic speakers. Mike Del Pret from the US is going to talk about the US market. We'll have Malcolm Myers, of course, who's going to give an update on how he sees the trends occurring in the industry. And we've got people who are actually using AI in their businesses every single day, and they're going to talk openly about what they are doing to make themselves more efficient and effective. So if you're interested, ppweurope25.com. Register today, get the best price tickets, and we look forward to seeing you. We have capped the number of people at the conference to 400 because of space. So don't miss out.
Simon, what's happening on the 14th of October?
14th of October is Startup Day for those who are building businesses and want to know what it really takes to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. Or you maybe you're already at 30 miles an hour, but you want to break
the speed limit.
well, no, you wouldn't break the speed limit. Okay, especially if you're from Germany. Okay, if you want to sort of turbocharge the business, then come along, spend the day with us. We're going to talk about everything from getting the business plan right, capital raising, pitching your business, hiring the right people, incentives, all those things, and the complexities related to what it really takes to build a business from scratch. And it's not just myself; it's other people who have done it. So I really want to encourage everyone to come here. Come here. There being Madrid on the 14th of October. Join us for that day, and then the 15th, 16th, and 17th, you'll have the main conference. Absolute must to attend. I'm actually really looking forward to it. We're going to have lots of great people. The list of the companies that are attending is absolutely first class.
There's
So
some
check
real
it all out.
snorters this year, aren't there?
Oh, trust me, it's getting better and better every year. So by the time I'm 90, it's going to be amazing. So anyway, turn up,
We'll
PPW.
wheel you up onto the stage.
Don't worry, I'm gonna be using my my longevity. Okay, so people will be bloody annoyed by me by then. Anyway, ppweurope25.com. Come along, and we look forward to seeing you there.
All right, gents, Simon, Harvey, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.